Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Groom's Perspective with your hosts Martha Haring and Katie Mosedale. We're opening the stable door and delving into the highs and lows of the eventing world via Spotify, Apple and all good podcasting platforms. For the video edition, please visit The Groom's Perspective via YouTube or say hello back on our Instagram. But for now, here's this week's episode. So, hello and welcome to another episode of The Groom's Perspective with me, Katie.
And me, Martha.
And this week's special guest, we have Joe and Nick from Joe Hansford Photography with us.
Welcome, guys.
Hello, hi, evening.
So, we'll just start briefly with, if you guys tell us a little bit about what Joe Hansford Photography is and what you guys do, and just basically let our listeners know what you're about.
Cool, yes, of course. So I actually started out Joe Hansford Photography back in 2000, which is many moons ago. And that's part of the reason why it's still called Joe Hansford Photography, because when I met Nick, I'd already been working as a solo photographer and I'd kind of established myself and managed to get a reputation. So I kind of was doing it solo for a few years until around 2005, and then Nick joined the business. And before that time, I'd actually, in that sort of between that 2000 2005, I'd gone and done a little marketing course that was all about photography and specialising in different aspects of photography and marketing photography, and that really sort of kick-started the business for me. And it really helped me to kind of find my feet a little bit and work out what field of photography that I wanted to be in, which at the time was really people photography. So I started out doing a lot of kind of commercial PR photography, and then Nick joined and we started doing weddings together, weddings, families, and it kind of grew quite rapidly and quite organically. It was literally, as soon as we started working together, we just got really popular and we kind of got a bit inundated, really, didn't we? Yes. We just got quite swamped in a good way. It was really exciting and really fun. You know, we ended up shooting weddings in Italy, in Spain, Scottish castles. We sort of travelled all over, didn't we? Obviously a lot of local ones. And alongside that, we photographed families, and I had a part of the business that was also doing commercial work for various different kinds of clients, some commercial portraits, some products. And then we got to around 2010, and I just had this gut feeling that I didn't want to just shoot weddings. I hadn't set out to just shoot weddings, and we were just getting a little bit dominated by it. And I'd seen one equine photographer working in UK and just sort of been a little bit fascinated. And I grew up with, well, I didn't grow up with horses in my family, but I grew up loving horses, riding, doing a bit of pony club, all that kind of stuff, and then kind of dropped it when I went off to university. So I kind of had that innate passion for the horse and, you know, love of the horse's beauty and everything. And then I think it was 2012, we had a wedding with a couple who met at pony club, and everything about the wedding was kind of horse related, and they were going to have a couple of horses at the wedding. It was a July wedding, I think, that year. And true to British weather, the weather was just absolutely horrendous. I mean, torrential rain,
flood warnings.
Yeah, flood warnings. This is July, and we had a couple of fairly slightly challenging wedding scenarios that particular year, didn't we? I think it was 2012.
2012. Special year.
Yeah, so, you know, think hurricanes, floods, all that kind of thing. It happened on weddings, and this particular wedding, I think they had water coming up through the dance floor, but, you know, they were kind of equestrian farming types, and they totally embraced it. Everyone had a brilliant time, but the horses didn't make it to the wedding. So I then said to them, you know, how about doing a shoot with horses? You know, a few months after the wedding, it just seemed like the right thing to do. So that was our very first ever equine shoot, and we did some at home. We took the horses to the beach, and that became one of the shots from that shoot became our very first equestrian business card. It was just two beautiful horses touching noses. They were wearing like tatty head collars. But it was just a really lovely shot and a really lovely shoot, and that sort of kicked it off for us, didn't it?
Indeed,
And then I think I sort of, I really had this drive to stay creative as a photographer and not to get too stuck in doing one thing, if that makes sense. I mean, that probably suits some people, but I love having variety in my work, and in our work, and it just gave us this whole new genre, and a whole new sort of exciting journey. Alongside our weddings, so we do still shoot some weddings, but not nearly as many as we used to. And then it just became a real passion, didn't it? And took us all over the first few years. I think we shot Mary and Emily King. We did a shoot with the Royal Andalusian School in Spain.
Pignon in France.
We photographed Jean-Francois Pignon in France. It was just very, very exciting and fun. And here at home, probably most of our commissions are private shoots for horse owners. We decided at the beginning that we didn't want to photograph events. So that's probably our main client is just people who love their horses, really. Some of them are competitive, some of them are just kids with ponies. And some of the work we do as well is commercial shoots for equestrian brands who want a particular style of photograph to promote their work. So so here we are, kind of 13 years on.
That sounds brilliant.
Me,
I didn't know you guys started that way. I thought you always did horses, so that's really interesting to hear the story behind how you actually got around to shooting horses and people.
Yeah.
And it was especially challenging for me because I could handle a camera, that's fine.
Yeah.
But put a horse in front of me and I didn't know what to do.
Nick did not have a clue about horses.
I had to learn all new skills.
Yeah, no experience. And the thing about horses is that, getting their shape. Definitely. And he did also learn to ride in 2015-16 because we wanted to do a horse safari together. But I think Nick's pretty unique. I don't think it's easy to learn. I think most professional photographers, if they tried to photograph horses without a background knowledge of horses, I mean, there's the handling of horses and keeping horses calm and being around them, all that kind of thing. But B, there's also the whole, you have to get that right shot and that right look with the horse, because otherwise you're not gonna want to have that on your wall. And Nick has mastered that really well, so hats off to him, really.
So it's like
he's also very good at holding horses and calming them down and all that kind of thing. Which, hello, we lost you there.
Yeah, no, we've got you. So
hello.
We wanted to get you guys on to kind of speak about your sponsored rider program. It's really well received, and we think it's a big part of our sport as riders and grooms is the sponsorship that comes with that. As we all know, the sport is so financially aided, and having support of businesses and companies and even just people is such a massive thing for us. So if you guys would like to talk us about why you started your sponsored rider program and what it kind of entails and how it's developed over the years.
Yeah, so that started, our sponsorship started around 2014, so it was not long after we'd started kind of really photographing horses in a more in-depth way. So really we kind of launched our equine photography in 2013. And I guess the background to it was that I've always had an interest and a passion for helping and supporting young people. I think young people are our future. I trained young people in photography when I was younger and mentored some of them. I did some work with young people with learning difficulties, etc., etc. So I've always had this drive to kind of help the younger generation, because I like I said, I think they're our future. And what happened was, it was very organic the way our sponsored rider program started. So there was a client, a mum and a daughter. The daughter's called Amelia, and we've kind of used them as models a couple of times when we were building our portfolio. So we got to know them quite well. And we were literally having a cup of tea in the lorry one day, and Amelia I think she was about 13, 14 at the time, and she just piped up in a slightly underconfident way and said, would you and Nick consider sponsoring me? And it was completely out of the blue. And we were like, okay, maybe. I guess I didn't really know what it meant at the time. We were quite, we'd only been doing equine photography for about a year, so we were quite new to it all. But anyway, we said, look, give us some time, we'll have a little think. We went home and chatted it through, and actually we thought, gosh, what a brilliant idea, maybe we can support young people. We wanted to be mixing with and getting to know families with ponies, and I really liked the idea that it was a sort of little known rider. She had an Instagram following and she was out competing and stuff, but a lot of the sponsorship at that time, which must have been around 2014, was all the big names, famous riders, not kind of lower level riders. So although now there is a lot of sponsorship around, at different levels, I don't think there was, sort of 10, 12 years ago. So, and initially when it started, we decided we wanted 3 riders. So we started with Amelia, then we found a couple of other local riders. One was an eventer and one was a dressage rider, and we offered a kind of sponsorship to them. And initially it was literally just, we got some nice rugs for their horses and ponies. We got a gilet and a saddle pad for them each, and it was literally just giving them the product and doing some photographs for them, doing some shoots for them. And then I think it was during that year, so it must have been around 2014, I just felt I wanted to add another dimension to it. For me, just giving them kind of goodies was nice and great, but I wanted to add more of an educational, developmental, supportive aspect to it. So what we did was we went to those 3 riders and we said, look, we know there's various bits of help out there for competing and supporting you. What can we give you that would be more beneficial to you? And the answer that came back was kind of, I guess, what you call the kind of psychological mentoring, support side of riding, and the challenges of riding, and the challenges particularly of competing. So I found that really interesting. And then I started to look around and think, who could we have as a mentor for young people? We made some local inquiries and kind of asked around a couple of top riders, but they were all too busy and stuff. And then on a visit to Whatley Manor, where we've done quite a lot of work, and which is also the place where we launched our equestrian brand, we'd asked Natasha Baker to come along and do our brand launch, which was wonderful. She was really inspiring and everything. And one of the staff at Whatley Manor just said to me, well, why don't you ask Natasha? She's such an inspirational person. And it was like, yes, staring us in the face, really. It seemed really obvious, even though I hadn't thought of it. Of course, we got in touch with Natasha, and she was instantly a big yes. And that really started the format of the programme as it is today. We've sort of amended and tweaked things as we've gone along and as we found out what worked and what didn't, but that really sort of started it in the format that I really liked. So she agreed basically to mentor the young riders. So each year we would have like a get together early in the year. They'd have their first mentoring session. We'd get to know each other, and we would still obviously get them some branded goodies, and they would have a couple of shoots with us a year. But it just added in a different dimension, and it definitely kind of brought a different side to the whole thing. And we felt very fortunate to have Natasha Baker on board. She's highly experienced, she's super inspiring, and yet at the same time, she's just like the girl next door. She's very approachable, very fun, very down to earth. So it really added, a whole amazing aspect to it, which we're really grateful for Natasha contributing in such a big way, and we know from our young riders that it's been a big help to them, obviously, especially with dealing with things like the psychological aspects of competing and challenges, just the challenges of horses.
Yeah, we actually touch on that ourselves, don't we, in our episodes about the episode that came out like last week, we were both walking the cross country course, and we were like, well, I was being really negative, which no one will be surprised to hear. Yeah. And Katie was like, Martha, you need to get a grip. So I think it's like that aspect of your program is really great.
Yes, it's hard. I mean, I think one thing I realised just from chatting to young clients is that it's not easy. I mean, eventing in particular, I just think, how do you do that? Do you know what I mean? How do you do that? It's 3 disciplines. You've got 2 athletes. There's such a big number of things that can go wrong. And psychologically, to go through all of that and come out the other side on top with really good scores and no big mistake, it's just really challenging. And then you have things like the British weather, you have injury, you have this, you have that. It's just I do want, I don't know how young people do it.
Yep. We don't.
So it's hard. It's hard, isn't it? It's hard. Yeah. I think the more support you can get.
Yeah, massively. And I think as well, like we were discussing this quite recently, like not only is there so many variables of things that can go right or more often than not wrong, I think the way that the world's changed now as well, in terms of like there's eventing scores, so there is live scores for everybody to see straight away. There's so much more like videography at events and things. So I just think not only do you have all the pressures that they've always been there is also now this new like everybody knows about everything straight away. And I think that whether it's probably like in our age, we have grown up with it a bit, so we don't necessarily realise it, but that just adds a whole nother layer of pressure to what is already quite a high pressured environment.
Yeah, it's kind of like everything you do is exposed and visible to everybody. It's like there's no level of kind of like, oh, you were just over there doing a dressage test and you completely messed it up. It's like if it's been filmed and it's, Yeah,
100%. And like you could just log on social media and all of a sudden you're in the background of someone doing a perfect test. And you think, oh God, like no one was meant to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hats off to all of you. I do a little bit of dressage and I find it really challenging. It's just I think there is no other sport where there's 2 athletes in this way, and horses are complex and sensitive. So you've got your own nerves to deal with, then you've got your horse to deal with. It's just so much. So yeah, and I just think having that insight from someone who's competed at a top level, done really well, but also had her own, Natasha has had her own set of challenges. I wouldn't say it's been plain sailing for her and her family. It's very much a family affair with the Bakers, but she's resilient, and I think her sharing her experiences is really, really inspiring, for young people who are, facing the same struggles, I guess.
Yeah, and I think we can kind of link to that as well, in the fact that we've actually benefited from talking about how our day goes when we go eventing, because we were at Osborne a couple of weeks ago and we both had like really average days. It didn't look great on paper, and we actually just made it into like a bit of, not a joke, but we just laughed and we were like, we're actually having a good day regardless of how it's gone. And I think then we come and talk about it on the podcast, and we're like, actually we've actually turned like what would have been a negative day for us into something quite positive, and we're sharing that with everyone else. And even if only one person listens to what we're saying, and they can go, actually I'm not alone in feeling that my day didn't go great, but we've got the next one to look forward to. So I feel like we can definitely link with what you guys achieve with Natasha and how that works with your riders. We can definitely see how that would be really beneficial.
Definitely.
I mean, just talking about it, and kind of planning for, how you deal with, things not going right. I mean, I'm a pretty much a novice at competing horses, but, I had one the other day, and I made a mistake right at the beginning of the test. And what did I do? I literally swore going past the judge's box.
We haven't done that yet.
That's definitely something we do.
Oh God! And my trainer was like, you said that word going right past the judge's box, and it was like, oh, and she was like, you should have been disqualified. I wasn't. I got away with it. But it was just like, it's so easy. Like if you fall apart, the horse, it all falls apart. And that's why I'm so in awe of people who go and do that week in, week out. Do you know what I mean? And not, I think eventing, in my eyes, I think it's all very challenging, but I do personally think eventing is just like hats off to you guys. You know what I mean? Going around a cross country course and doing dressage and doing show jumping. It's just,
I think we're all crazy.
Yeah. You are slightly insane. I think you have to slightly be insane to go and do that on a weekend off. Even, you know what I mean? You could be sat on the beach somewhere.
For sure.
But no,
So when you like launch your sponsored rider program and things, I guess we kind of wanted to chat about because we're in the bracket of, we're not the professionals at the top, but we're like younger riders who look for support from businesses, and we want to kind of work with businesses and see what they can offer and stuff. So that's why we thought it'd be quite useful to get you on to chat about like, what are you looking for in a rider? Because I think a lot of the people that listen to our podcast are similar to us, competing at like 100 novice level and things. And actually, what is it that you're looking for in a rider?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. So the biggest thing for me has always been like passion and commitment to the sport. I don't think it's something that you can do in a half-hearted way. I think you have to have a lot of determination and commitment. We've got our own list of criteria that we use to choose our riders, which is more in depth than that. But I think what comes out of a rider application for me, or the biggest thing I look for, is that real sense of they've got a passion, they've got a drive, they've got commitment. For me, I was always open to people sharing their struggles as well, because I think that's real. We're not, if somebody's already got it figured out and they're kind of pretty much at the top of their game and they've got loads of support, then they don't really need us. Do you see what I mean?
Sure.
So it's kind of like, and it wasn't an easy process choosing our young riders. It was lengthy and hard, because we were essentially choosing people on paper. We asked for video applications, which sometimes is better in giving you a sense of someone's personality. But I think those are the two biggest things, because for me, it's like it's passion and commitment and sort of maybe determination that are the kind of overriding drives that are going to carry you through when the going gets tough and make you carry on. If you're not that committed, then at some point when it gets too hard, you're going to give up. I suppose those are the biggest. And then there are other... I don't know if I'm talking too soon about this, but our criteria for choosing. So I can go through what those. So the things we would look for in a young rider would be, there's a few of them. So resourcefulness, the one I just mentioned, the passion for the sport, whether it's, and we were always open to para riders. We had several para riders, dressage, eventing, show jumping, carriage driving. I think we had a runner-up one year. We didn't actually ever sponsor a carriage driver, but we were open to it. Commitment to the sport, achievements. I guess we did have that on our criteria. It wasn't like we weren't necessarily expecting our riders to be competing at a really top level. Again, it's like we wanted to be helping them on their way up rather than at the top. Suitability for our brand. So I guess part of what we were doing was, they were going out and being our brand ambassadors, wearing our name, sort of representing us, even if in a small way. So, wearing our logo at events, that kind of thing. So we also wanted to find personalities that we felt, kind of connected with us and liked us, if you see what I mean, naturally kind of connected with our photography, that sort of thing. Social media following and usage, and this is an interesting one, and one that I used to, or one that we've questioned over the years, just because well, we always felt like our young riders, or always feel like our young riders need to be on social media, because it's one of the main ways they can promote us, one of the main ways we can promote them and also support them. But equally, we didn't want it to be the be all and end all.
Yeah.
So we did, and obviously looking at someone's social media, you can kind of see what they're up to. So we did feel that they had to have some sort of social media presence. And we've had some riders who've had fairly big following, and other riders who haven't had that much following. But we did feel like they needed to have...
So have you guys noticed a difference between riders that have like a big following or riders that have a small following? Is there like a big difference between it, or is it kind of what you put in, you kind of get out, or does social media play a really big part in that?
You mean in what way?
In terms of like representing your business, if you have a rider with a big following,
it does make a difference. It does make a difference. Yes, if they've got a bigger following, they are more able to promote us. Obviously, they've got a bigger reach. But I guess what I'm saying was that wasn't our only criteria. It was on the list, and we didn't want to choose solely by that. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. So we weren't out just to get influencers kind of promoting us.
I guess if you did that, you'd be less likely to actually get. It's a balance for you, is what I think. It's a balance between getting someone with a reach, but also someone that's going to be authentic to your brand, not just someone with a massive following.
Exactly. And someone that needed the help we were offering, and that maybe we can, because one of the things we have done along the way with our program is giving them help with social media. So we've got some A4 sheets of what you can do, A, to support us, and B, to support any other brands that you're working with. This is what you can do on a daily, weekly basis, and this is what we expect you to do, say monthly, to support us. And that if you want to get sponsorship ongoing, you need to be active doing this. Do you see what I mean? It is a two-way relationship. And I think, young sponsor riders need to be, or, when you're going for sponsorship, you need to be aware of that and, work on that. I think some of the young, and that sometimes worked and sometimes didn't.
We've had young riders who we've seen had challenges with posting on social media and actually doing the promotion for brands, and they've had to learn over the years how to do it, and they've come on leaps and bounds.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a couple that I could sort of mention who, when we met them and they were maybe 14 a few years ago, their accounts were very sort of basic and, not brilliant, but they're 14, what do you expect, and then as we've sort of got to know them over the years and they've sort of grown and developed as riders, they've also started to develop their social media and their promotion and working with brands, and some of them have done really well at this. It's then there's a couple we know.
It's not easy, is it? If you're also trying to ride a horse and do your own thing, it's challenging to.
I think we've actually, since starting this podcast, have had that challenge, because we look at social media and we're like, it's easy, you just post every day, it's really simple, but actually we're having to give ourselves dedicated time to be look, we need to post on social media tonight, we need to edit this clip, or we need to tag this brand, and it's actually remembering to do all of that on top of riding and working. It takes more than we thought it did.
It's a bit like it's a bit like we've given ourselves another job, but also then it is just you think good intentions, you think, oh right, okay, so this evening we need to do X, Y and Z, but you've actually just had a 12-hour day on the yard, you've come in, you've showered and cooked tea, and all of a sudden it's 10 o'clock and you think, well, I need to go to bed before we do it all again. And stuff, and that is definitely.
I haven't got the.
It's having the mental. The mental effort, and like you say as well, it's a massive skill, and the way it's developed as well. It's not something you learn at school, but it could be a subject kind of thing.
Yeah, you're some
it could now. It could.
People, so you can see some people are really good at the social media stuff, and their accounts grow really quickly, and then other people wouldn't be their strong point. And I think, like you say, with subjects, it's just like school, you're either good at something or you're not, and I think social media would fall into that category.
Is very much like that. I totally agree with you, and I also think that we, in terms of them representing us as a brand. Yes, it's great having someone with loads of followers, but it wasn't just about that for us. So we also are aware, you know, people can promote us as a brand ambassador by word of mouth and, you know, hanging out on their yard and recommending us to people. So it wasn't just about that. A couple of other little things that we used to use as criteria to choose, or we have used as criteria, is how much we feel a young rider will benefit from mentoring, because obviously we want them to utilize Natasha and to learn from her, and you know, we want someone who's really going to benefit from that. And the last thing was just communication. So how we felt their communication was with us, how their communication was in general. Interestingly, must be about 3 or 4 years ago, we so normally our applications are on email or online or email, and we had a paper application come through the post from a 14-year-old about 3 or 4 years ago, handwritten with a whole bunch of printed photographs. And it might sound quite archaic and quite backwards, but it really caught our eye just because it was so different and it was so well written and it was different, you know, and we sort of laid it all out. And just, I remember taking a picture and sending it to Natasha and going, wow, like this girl really wants it. Do you know what I mean? The effort that gone in. Likewise, we have one young sponsored rider who we're working with at the moment, and she applied, I think she started applying 2018, 2017-18, and she literally applied every single year until we sponsored her in 23. And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And literally at the beginning, I remember talking about her application with Natasha, and we just felt it was just too immature. It wasn't, you know, we didn't think her riding was anywhere like where, you know, it probably should be if we were going to really sponsor her. And not that we're after high level riders, but it just wasn't quite there. And then each year it was getting better and better, and then by 23 it was like, wow, we really have to sponsor you now. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah. And just that level of commitment and determination, it's like, you know, obviously it was like, you know, you really want this, you really want this. Do you know what I mean? It's like, as a brand, we were like, yes, let's do it.
I think that's really interesting as well, because unless someone told you that story, you wouldn't, on social media, you wouldn't realize that was what had gone on over the years. And I think that's a really good message for everyone out there, that if you really actually do want something and you want to work with a brand that you genuinely love, it is worth, you know, keep trying, because you know, you just don't know.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes doing something a bit different can kind of catch an eye or whatever. It's like the written application, that it, you know, it's quite an archaic way of doing it, handwriting, but it caught our imagination a little bit, just the way it was very well written. She'd obviously put a lot of time into it, and it does make a difference as a brand. If you feel someone's really sort of putting effort into something, then you think, okay, it's showing your passion, and you really want this, you know, because we used to get a lot of applications, so it was like trying to sort the people who really wanted it from the people who, you know, and who were really going to commit to the program and gain from it, from, you know, some people who are maybe, you know, interested but maybe not that committed, I guess is the right way of putting it.
Yeah, I think it's really good to hear that about your how you interpreted that person that kept applying, because I think I'm certainly someone who if have to push myself out my comfort zone to do something, and then if my mindset, if that had happened, would have been quite like, I've been rejected.
Yeah, they obviously don't like me.
I don't like, and I've like, it's good to hear that, like, don't take it personally. It's actually, you know, you might just not be the right fit for the brand at that time, and, you know, try again and stuff. So I think that's really good to hear for people, you know, young people in the sport. Like, don't be put off by it. It's not a personal thing.
Don't just give up.
Yeah, and actually, and for you, it showed how much that they wanted it, and that then became a real positive for you.
Yes, and I think I remember because all of our applications. So I think the way we've worked it is that we'd get all the applications in, and then myself, with some support with Nick, would go through all of them, like 100 plus or whatever. And we'd have our list of criteria, and I'd kind of have the list of criteria out on the wall or whatever, and go through and think, okay, that person's that, and that. And then I would narrow it down to around 20, and then Natasha looks through them, just because obviously we're aware of her time, and there's no way that she could look through 100 with us. And then between us, we'd sort of narrow it down to around 10 or whatever. And I remember discussing that application and Natasha saying, I think she's ready now.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, watching someone develop, and now it's like, yes, you're really serious about what you're doing, and we would really like to support you. It just felt like the right time. But I'm with you. I mean, I think if it was me applying for someone else, I'd feel rejected. It's hard not to, especially if you've done something multiple times. But we're just looking at where someone's at and whether they're really going to benefit, whether they can work with us as a brand and support us. And, like you said, it's really not a personal thing. It's literally, is that person ready and right, at the moment to do this? And sometimes it is just age, how old someone is, how, sort of developed they are, or how ready they are to commit to something like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's like we say, that's really reassuring to hear for us going forward. Like we're having to put ourselves out there completely at the minute, and it is so daunting. But to hear that we're not, you're not being received negatively, or just maybe it's not the right fit for you at that time, and that's such a big thing at the minute for us going forward. But
I would definitely say try again and go with your, if your gut is saying that that's a brand that you'd really like to work with, and that you think it could be a good fit for what you're doing, and that you think you could bring some benefit to that brand, I would keep going. Just be quite
keep trying.
It's like us in the horses. We don't get good results at the minute. We're like, we've got to keep going. We might get a good result next time.
Just keep going. You will evenally at some point. Next week, you never know.
I just want to shut them up. Have the sponsorship. Just take your jacket and stop messaging us.
Yeah. Here's your jacket. Off you go. I never want to hear from you again.
Yeah.
What we did think we'd ask as well, which obviously you've been in this industry for quite a while now, and kind of what have you seen change within the industry? Like from when you go and do your yard visits and that kind of thing, and what kind of challenges do you think now are the big ones for the younger riders and horse people in general?
Yeah. What are the challenges?
We throwing you on the spot here.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I guess it's like, what are the biggest challenges and how have things changed?
Well, I mean, everything is going up in price, isn't it? So it's not getting cheaper to even start thinking about, I want to be a rider.
Yeah, paying for horses is challenging. I think people are feeling the pinch. The economy is not in a great state. I personally, I still think a lot of what's got more challenging in the last 10 years to 15 years has to be the sort of the mental side of it and the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Nick's just written down good yards. I don't know what you mean.
I don't know. I think sometimes it can be really hard to find
good yards
with good support
as
well. So I think that's probably getting harder and harder. Yeah,
I do think finding a yard that's right for a horse and rider, if you're lucky enough to have your horses at home, great. I mean, that has its own set of challenges. Obviously, either you're looking after them or you need help to look after them. I think finding good yards can be hard for riders that suit the horse and the rider and kind of work for that combination that kind of tick all the boxes. I think yards are challenging places as well. It's like lots of women together. I don't see many men on yards.
Yeah, I mean that's really interesting to hear as well, because like for me and Katie, we both need to keep our horses in an environment that suits them. So I did have mine at home. You guys know, you've seen the setup that my horses have on the farm, and it didn't work for my type of horses and the facilities I had, and it wasn't working. So then I had to, you know, think what the next move was and find a yard suitable, and that meant becoming a groom again and that being my life again. So I think it's interesting that you guys have noticed that when you go on your shoots and you see the industry from a kind of a different side to what we would view the industry.
Yeah. I guess I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Did you mean from the photography? You mean from the horse perspective or the photography?
Either or really. From when you're shooting or with your own horse, you know, like what stands out as something that you think may be a challenge for riders or young riders in the industry.
Nick's writing notes.
I think Nick hit the nail on the head with the financials.
Straight in with the financial side.
I think the other thing, of course, is the weather conditions that we have over the last couple of years.
Yeah,
it's been very trying for riders to go out and compete because the events get cancelled and the ground's either too wet.
I can't imagine what it's like. I can't imagine what it must be like training for, you know, a 3-day event.
Yes.
And you know,
when it gets cancelled.
Yeah, and you pay for it, and then it even sounds like you don't get a full refund.
Yeah, no, that's long gone now. It's just take the money and champ it.
Yeah, I mean, weather has, in terms of the photography, weather has been challenging the last couple of years, and I think when we started out shooting photographing horses rather than weddings, we thought weather wouldn't be a problem at all. And now,
we were so naive.
Yeah, how naive we were. And of course, nobody wants their photo taken in the rain or even in the wind. And horses don't like the wind. They are so flipping sensitive, aren't they? Mm. So the weather has been challenging. Our work is quite weather dependent.
But it means that, you know, weddings happen whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
But, you know, an equine shoot, we can push to a different day. We can rearrange. We
can
find good weather.
Yeah, well, we end up pushing some. I don't know if we did with yours, Martha, but we end up postponing 3 times sometimes, don't we?
Yeah, I think we got lucky the day that we booked. And then you guys were messaging me and you were like, it looked really good. The weather's going to be really good. And I'm like, okay, this is because I was looking at the weather and it said cloudy. And I was like, oh no, it's, you know, I don't want clouds. But then you guys, you obviously, you know the weather quite well. So you were like, no, it's going to be fine. Yeah. And then it was fine. So
cloudy isn't an issue for us. Cloudy is soft light. And we have our own technique for making sunshine using flash if we need to. We get a lot of overcast days in England. So overcast light is pretty good for us. But too much rain or wind, and I think we had sun on your shoot as well, didn't we? Had a lovely sort of sunset on your shoot, Martha.
Yeah,
so we did get some sun as well. Which
so far
was it?
Yeah, it was really hot. I remember I was so stressed.
What a surprise!
Oh, you looked amazing.
You guys were great, so it was actually fine.
You actually looked amazing. Yeah, I'm trying. Are there other challenges we've had on yards? I mean, there are the regular challenges of just horses being horses, and that's something that you learn pretty quickly as an equine photographer. Like you can't push it too far with a horse, and obviously there's the safety. There's the safety of the owner, safety of the horse. You don't want anyone or anything injured. So there's a kind of, and I think when we first started it, I remember doing a shoot with Natasha over in she had one of the horses in Tetbury. And we were probably quite naive at the time. I think it was early days of doing horses. And we had this grand idea of doing Natasha in a dress with lovely horse in a field, had everything set up. You know, her mum would get the horse in place and Natasha would come over. And Suki, she was a mare, came out and saw a donkey in the field above. And it was like literally the whole thing went out the window. And we literally, I think we got one shot that whole evening. And it was a real kind of shock to us. It was like, really?
Just a donkey.
Cancel a shoot because of a donkey? But you know, we had to be careful. Like, you know, we can't have Natasha flying around on the end of a rope with, you know, Suki taking off. And she was a sensitive mare, and she just reacted big time. And that sort of stuff happens on shoots all the time. And that's
yes. I always say that horses are just like toddlers, and we shoot loads of young children, toddlers, and so on, and they're the same.
They are.
A horse can have good days, a toddler can have a good day on a bad day, and they have that sort of narrow window when they're actually at their
in
best.
A good place. Yeah. We always have this argument about would we rather photograph a bride, a horse, or a toddler. And
I'm thinking about going into shooting rabbits. I think rabbits are great furry creatures.
I don't know, they sound like they could like run off in all directions.
Yeah, there's probably a challenge.
Carrots.
You've got carrots. Okay, great. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just photograph some artwork.
Yeah, landscapes.
Yeah, something that doesn't move. We're just going to start photographing immobile things. It's like, don't work with children and animals. It is entertaining. But I think what's come out of that is you just learn. We have a big degree of latitude and a huge amount of patience, because that's how you get the shots. And that's the thing with horses. If you give them time and you keep things relaxed, that's really how you get the best results out of a shoot with horses, is just keeping it relaxed. You can't afford to get stressed if one thing goes wrong. If a shot you really want goes out the window, you just have to let go and, think on your feet and move on to the next thing, and just, trust the process really. And it does always work out. And, I think because we came out of a background where we were mainly working with humans who, apart from the toddlers, can take direction, horses are a different bag, but really fascinating in that way as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, because I think we can apply kind of what you're saying to us as grooms as well. And, no 2 days the same, and the horses sometimes aren't playing ball, and you just have to be adaptable and keep calm and go with what's happening.
Yeah.
So
oh yes.
So with you Joe, have your own horse and you ride and run a business as well. So what do you have help with your horse?
Estrella, she's called. Yeah, so I've got a Lusitano mare. I've had her for like 4 or 5 years now, and it definitely has had its challenges. It's a juggling act, and I think one of the things that I've found quite hard is that when we're in a busy period, my diary isn't like a standard working week. So we work tricky hours, we work a lot of evenings, or I might be out on a full day and I might be traveling, so then I'm gone for a day. So it's the total opposite of a 9 to 5. And I found that full livery wasn't great for my horse. I had some bad experiences with it, and finding a yard that worked for me and worked for her hasn't been easy, I wouldn't say. So the thing that's worked best for me is what you guys do, which is having a groom and having help, but having her on a sort of part livery where I still kind of manage her, and I just have help mornings and then have help evenings when I need it, and when I'm very busy with work, or when I'm away, or when I'm out for a day, that sort of thing. And it's been really amazing kind of finding, I've had a couple of really, really good grooms now, and seriously for me, they've both been girls. They've both sort of been amazing. Literally, they are like gold dust for me. And I totally trust them with my horse, trust them to do what I ask, and they let me know if there's anything amiss. And it's really interesting, and I really sort of look after the people that are helping me, because I think I can't do my job without it. Literally. And I don't know, it's interesting, I guess, both through our work and both through having a horse and being on various yards, I do feel grooms are undervalued, underpaid, just generally don't seem to be, I don't know, like yards don't function without them, as far as I can tell. I couldn't function without, my groom's help, and there is help, on the yard where Estrella is as well. I couldn't function without any of that. So I think you play a really key role in making yards and making the equestrian world tick over. It's that day-to-day care of the horses. Horses are so vulnerable. So much can go wrong with a horse. So, and I also am a big believer that horses are, you know, individuals, so it isn't one size fits all. You know, it has to be individual.
Yeah, we definitely.
You know, there are some, you know. Yeah. Well, you must see this all the time. So I really like my groom. I look after her. She's fantastic, you know. And yeah, I'd like to think she's become a friend. The last one I had last year also became a friend. For me, that's how it should be, and I think there definitely needs to be work done to change the industry and, you know, make grooming a better career, really, or, you know, a better path, I guess, is a better way to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's really what we're trying to hit on with our episodes.
Exactly what we're trying to do.
We want to talk about our role as grooms, and obviously we work on an event yard full time, but obviously your groom would probably have other grooming jobs as well as looking after your horse. So I think hearing more different aspects of the grooming industry and how you use a groom, but we're grooms ourselves, I think it's really interesting to hear that different types of riders have grooms for different reasons, and I think that's suggests there's a massive scope to the job that we do, and that if anyone's thinking about getting into the grooming industry, it doesn't necessarily have to be on just one set yard, that there are different options,
lots
to
of different
go down.
ways of doing it.
No, I mean, my current groom, it's interesting, but when I've advertised to find people, the ones that have usually worked out aren't the ones who've come instantly back and said, I'm in the area, I do this, I charge that much, blah, blah, blah. It's been the ones that have just come along afterwards and gone, oh, look, I'm local and I could help you out. And I've kind of summoned them to a meeting and had a very long chat, and then basically sort of trained them in what I want them to do. And the current groom I've got, she's now really busy as a groom because she's good. And, you know, she literally does what she asks. So I think there's many different aspects to grooming. I just think it's such a key part. It's like care of the horse. Like, how can any equestrian, you know, yard, especially a competitive yard, function properly without the horses being well looked after? It's so basic. Horses need hay, you know, they need grazing, they need exercise. There's such a long list of what they need. So hats off to you guys.
Well, thank you so much for such a big insight into what you both do and your sponsored rider program and the grooming aspect as well. It's been so nice to hear your journey and chat to you guys about what you do, and thanks so much for sharing a bit of your life with us and our listeners.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. Absolutely love it, and we think the podcast is fantastic. It's going to really go places, so
thank you very
guys.
much. And I think hopefully this will be really useful for some of our listeners who are in a position of wanting to apply to a program, you know, like yours. And thank you for giving them that insight.
No worries, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Cool. So thank you everyone for listening to episode 7, and we will speak to you all on the next one.
Speak to you soon. Thank you.